No?
Absolutely, yes, yeah. But anyway, let's move on to our first guest, who is Carol Thompson. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And of course, you know, anyone who is a lover of music and reggae will know you very, very well. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you both. Thank you.
Pleasure to have you.
And I know you've got a show coming up as well. So we'll give that a little plug later on the show. But I'll give you a quick plug now, which is happening in Southgate.
That's right.
In North London on the 25th of June, and we'll be giving out a bit more details about that, but a little later on in the show as well. But welcome.
Thank you.
And you've got a couple of albums out as well.
Yes,
tell me about that.
Yeah, I've got a new album of covers. These are songs that I've always loved myself, that I decided just to do a collection of songs from all different genres, and male and female, and just cover them in my style and try not to completely wreck them.
Yeah, doubt it very much.
No, but you know, sometimes people have very strong feelings
about the
special
songs.
on some classic songs. You know. Anyway, I decided to, because I normally write my own songs, so I decided that I'd get a collection of songs together and make an album, and I've called it the best of the best. So it's the best of the best hit songs and classic songs that people love out there, and it's been people have given great feedback on it, and I've sung a few of them at some of my shows, and they've seemed to have gone down really well.
Was that quite a liberating experience to be able to do some covers as opposed to, you know, I mean, it's always nice to write your own songs, but was it liberating to kind of do a covers album?
It was actually. It was nice to interpret other people's songs and interpret coming from my perspective as well, and just to see what we could do with it. You know, sometimes it was just the arrangements were so beautiful that you wanted to keep a lot of the arrangements, but just change the feel.
Yeah.
Some of the songs we changed completely.
Right.
So
which song did you completely take apart and put back together again?
Well, I completely changed John Legend's song, not the All of Me song, but the one Ordinary People.
Oh right, okay.
He when he composed it, and it's a ballad, beautiful ballad.
Yeah.
So we decided to kind of make it.
I can see how that song could actually work as a
It's
reggae
kind of
song.
Yeah.
I can hear it in my mind now without actually hearing a
quite
song.
upbeat.
Yeah.
And even though it's not exactly a breaking up song, but it's a song talking about the angst of a relationship and all the journeys and different things that you go through. And so, you know, John Legend, his style was like very reflective and very sort of very reflective and low and slow. But I decided to say, well, look, it's more of a celebratory thing, even though we have all these different things we go through as people. We're just ordinary people, and sometimes we fall out, sometimes we don't. So it's quite celebratory in a way. So you know. People like it. It seems to work, you know. So that song, and I did a cover of Shaka Khan's. My brain's gone blank. She had so many songs on there, but her one of Shaka Khan's great songs, and that was a lot of fun.
Feel for You, Through the Fire.
No, it wasn't Through the Fire. It was Sweet Thing.
Sweet Thing. Okay.
Yeah. And it's a song that I've always loved, and that was lovely to do. And I did a Diana Ross song. And all kinds of stuff.
How did you go through the process of choosing? Obviously, because it's difficult to pick. Cause there's lots of songs that we all love, so that must have been quite difficult. But
it wasn't difficult.
Right.
Because there's so many songs that I've been inspired by, and so many songs that I love. But not every song suits you. Yes. You know, it's like you might like every single dress out there, and you might see a dress you like that's on a woman, but it doesn't suit you. But you still love the dress. But for some certain songs, I thought, well, no, it's not really for me.
Yeah.
But most of the songs, it wasn't very difficult to choose.
Yeah.
I just had so many songs over my period as a musician that have inspired me, and it was very easy. You know, it actually had too many.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, where would you say that reggae is today? Because Lovers Rock gigs are very, very popular, but actually, to be honest, the people who will go will be, probably sort of 35 onwards in age. So, is the sort of classical sort of reggae actually attracting new audiences, or have we all kind of slid into the dancehall these days?
No, it's really refreshing actually, because when I do my shows, I tend to get whole families.
Yeah.
So I get the women and the men that grew up with me from my generation, and then their children who heard the music when they were growing up as well, and sometimes even, you know, some of their grandchildren, which is scary, but they come along. But you know, some of the children of our generation, my generation, will come up to me and say, "Oh, you know, your music reminds me of rice and peas on a Sunday." So it's quite nostalgic. And it's something that is sort of like a background and a backdrop to their lives as well. Not just for me, it was like our coming of age, you know, when we were teens and young in our early 20s. But for then their children, it's also nostalgic in so much as they remember their parents as young parents and also themselves as young people growing up and hearing this music, you know, in the home and at christenings and weddings and stuff like that. So it's I get a wide range, and my fan base is really wide and diverse ethnically as well. So it's lovely. It's very interesting. Yeah.
There's one young, I can't remember her name for the life of me now, but there's one artist, a white girl I believe, that's kind of doing a kind of lovers rock thing. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Adele?
Not Adele, no.
Right.
It's she's she's Adele Harvey.
Yeah.
No, it's a different girl. Her name escapes me, so that's probably not that good. But yeah, there's one girl I know that's kind of doing a kind of lovers rock thing, you know, in this country, and
doing it well or doing it badly?
To be honest, I don't. It seems like it's quite good, you know.
Yeah.
It seems like it's.
But you're just a bit watered down.
I don't know if any wallpaper would be coming off the wall. I don't know if any wallpaper would be coming off the walls to it, but you know, it's worth a try, isn't it? You know.
Yeah. So, I mean, what's your sort of, you know, point on that one? You know, is it,
no, it's just.
so
I suppose the point I'm trying to make is like Carol said. It's when you recorded like a lot of your earlier work, and when lovers rock became, you know, popular. It was a kind of it marked an era, that music defines in a way, and it's actually quite a shame because it's really you know, a British creation in one sense, so Jamaican and British creation, that it's the legacy of it hasn't continued as much. You know, in this country, and it'd be interesting actually to get your opinion on why you think that is, and what's happened in the. Is it? I mean, I watched that film that Lovers Rock. Have you seen Lovers Rock? That
what, Menelik's?
Yeah, Menelik Shabaz's.
Love Rock story.
Yes, yeah. That was quite interesting, but it'd be interesting. So that kind of showed me a little bit about kind of how the movement came, went, and then kind of ended in a sense. But it was such a defining kind of era, and it's a shame that it hasn't sustained in a different way. Obviously, you guys still work and stuff like that, but just in terms of a movement that could have probably come from that could have carried on all through the 80s, 90s, and till today. So why do you think that might be?
Well, that's a huge question.
Yeah, sorry. I tend to have like 10 questions in one, don't I?
Yeah, that's a huge question. I mean, with the Lovers Rock movement, because it was a bit of movement at that time, but it was quite fragmented. You had lots of different labels, so you didn't really have like one powerhouse that was that actually galvanized all these artists and all these producers, and then was able to sustain it, and then all the money going into one pot in order to
we didn't have a Motown, basically.
No, in order to then put and invest money into more artists in order to kind of take them to the next level, do all the marketing that was necessary in order to then hit the market globally. So because it was all as lots of little Indians, I would say, all running their own little shows, north, east, south and west, it was so that when they ran out of money or ran out of steam, it was very hard for the next person to come in and start the work.
Did Lovers Rock take flight, if you like, in other countries? For example, in America?
It did in certain little pockets of America, because I go to America occasionally. They loved it in Japan. I spent a lot of time in Japan.
Well, they love reggae in Japan generally,
don't
they?
Yeah. They're great music, consumers of music in Japan. And Germany as well. And, spotted, little areas around Europe. But because, as I said, there wasn't like a concerted effort in terms of the industry and the music and the finance and the whole business to say, okay, let's give this a major push. financially and on a global marketing level, it fizzled out.
So it's almost like it really just did emerge from the grassroots, and the overview wasn't, and the oversight potentially wasn't there to kind of realise what it. Sometimes we don't realise what we've got in our own backyard. Sometimes, as a black community, and we don't realise the value of what we create sometimes. So perhaps it kind of emerged.
It was a bit of that. It was that if they'd all come together and created some kind of industry and company to galvanise all of these different pockets of entrepreneurs and producers and production houses, then I think one or two, because really someone like Janet, who had a #1 hit with Silly Games, should have really opened the door.
Yes.
And they should have run with Janet, made her an album, and then created iconic, or the very first of it, a bit like what they did with Mary J. Blige in America. This is like this ghetto fabulous thing. Make it, and then you make it into something that they can actually then
perpetuate
or just export around the world. And then from that, then the rest of us would have had an opportunity to develop, and then you would have had an industry. But for some reason, it just didn't happen that way. But what has happened is that people love the music, and it was, I'm always amazed by the people that have my album. Because what happened is Janet had the single and I had the album, and so that's probably why we're able to do a lot of stuff together. But I should explain
to the listeners, just in case you that we're talking about Janet Kay.
So we do a lot of stuff together. But the point is that it always never ceases to amaze me the amount of people that have the album and where the album has reached, and because I never really toured in those early days, there wasn't really a roadmap for touring. There was like a roots roadmap, so you had like all the roots musicians coming down from Bob Marley and in this country the Aswags and the Steel Pulses, and they had a sort of roots roadmap, but there wasn't a Lovers Rock live roadmap. We didn't quite work with the roots people. We were a little bit too soft and a little bit too sweet. Trying to do that sort of chant down Babylon thing. So
is that just in terms of the music, or is that the personalities as well?
Personality music, I think, because the roots image was so powerful, and because they had a statement, they were making a statement, and it was an important statement as well, because they spoke for me and a lot of people of my generation at that time about the injustices and social issues and the whole movement and the whole political movement. So it was an important movement.
Did they view?
But it was very male dominated.
But did they view, if you like, Lovers Rock, sort of the Jamaican reggae artists, as a bit too non-political or soft, because you had a lot of radical sort of rebellion going on there, and in a way, if you look at at the time, obviously when Lovers Rock came out, the condition of the community at the time, you had the sus laws, you had a lot of explicit racism going on, and I mean I can see that in many ways it was actually a balm to kind of soothe an antidote to soothe the sort of the hurt that was going on. But I'm wondering what the reaction is of the Chant Down Babylon Brigade and how they reacted to Lovers Rock.
Is, after they finished chanting down Babylon, they really needed someone to go home with. I had a place. Our music, at the end of the day, we actually came together, and we were a generation that kind of liked each other, loved each other, and we would get together, we'd dance with somebody who we didn't even know. That would never really happen. I mean, intimately dance with somebody that you don't know in a very dark space. And so that was something that as a generation, we all moved together. We kind of liked each other. We didn't have like all these postcode things that you have now.
Yeah, sad really, isn't it?
No, actually, we as a generation, we actually all kind of liked and looked after each other in a funny kind of way. It sounds really sort of
the days of Shabin and all that.
But it's the truth. It's the truth, So I think there was a place for the music, and funnily enough, now when I do my shows, they come out as couples, and all of those radical guys that were in the 70s and 80s and 90s, they're matured, and they come out, and it's, for them it's a bit of nostalgia, and it's very comfortable.
Yeah,
the music
yeah.
is comfortable for.
And I'm sure in many ways, actually, you know, the music of of yourself and Janet Kay and others are probably responsible for quite a few.
A few.
I plead the Fifth Amendment. Nothing to do with me.
Quite a few people. But of course, there was a little bit of consciousness, actually. You know, I mean, what was that song? You know, "Proud to be Black."
Yeah,
there was a little bit of that going on.
There was still a lot of it. You know, there was. You know, as much as we all wanted to fall in love or fall out of love or whatever, you know, in terms of and be romantic, there was still that undertone of, well, we're quite conscious, we actually know what's going on, and also, you know, the Black Pride thing was very important as well.
I was going to ask you a question. In terms of that era, do you think that you could have, I think, like you said, there was a lot of unity, a lot of love, and I think we probably had a more visible enemy, if you can see what I mean. Not to say enemy, but, you know, the oppression was probably a bit more overt then, you know, like I said, the sus laws and things like that, whereas now it's maybe a bit more insidious. But I don't think, one of the things I've said before is I just don't think that people realised what was happening in terms of the insidious nature of how perhaps something like racism would change, because it seemed like there was so much hope and optimism at that time. How do you feel about perhaps being young and, you know, so young at those times when you were doing all these things, and then, you know, all these years later, maybe the state of society and some of these things that we're hearing, like we just spoke about with these...
Yeah, with these young children.
Yeah, and not just, and that's in America, but even, you know, even here. You know, how do you...
It's disappointing.
It is.
Yeah, I'm really disappointed that for the work that my mother and father put in, and my grandparents in this country, and us as like the first, second generation here, the optimism, especially through the Thatcher period, we were very optimistic. You know, we worked very hard, and we were rewarded, and we felt that there was a lot of possibilities. You know, you could have an idea and actually realise that idea. There was a lot of support, even though there was racism going on. But actually, if you wanted to do something with your life, whether it was study, whether it start a business, there was the potential to do well. And a lot of us did do very well in the 80s and the 90s. We did extremely well. We had great jobs and good positions in a lot of the mainstream corporate companies, and also our own industry and in our own businesses as entrepreneurs. We did very well.
Many people say things have gone backwards since then.
Do you really feel that as well?
It really has. I just feel as though they've pulled the ladder up and shut the loft. You know, I just feel that something serious has really happened in this country in terms of our growth as a community, and I think that we really have to come together and really start thinking about what are we going to do for our children in this country, so that they can rise as a mass. I mean, one or two will always do really well, because that's the nature of this country, sort of like cherry picking. But in terms of en masse, we have a serious underclass, which is really growing and very and unacceptable. And so, a lot of things have changed, and a lot of doors have closed, and we have to really put our thinking caps on, and also pray a lot as well, and meditate, and really work out what are we going to do for ourselves and the next generation, for those who want to remain in this country.
Yeah, absolutely. We're just coming towards the end of this segment, but I do need to plug your
Please do. I've got so many things going on to